your job is done when you finish quantifying, and then that's what I sit around here looking at graphs.
But we can give them some more time. Like, I'm guessing they'll finish, but I think it's good to have this session while it's still open, like we said the last time. But yeah, we were missing just like maybe 4 people, but yeah, we can do this session. I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to help a lot of the questions that people have, like while putting scores to the praise.
Okay, then perhaps we should get going.
Yeah, we can start if you want.
Or do you think we should wait?
I think there's enough quorum to start.
Yeah.
We have Matteo, we have Danny, Clara, and Nicola, which is the whole rewards team, which I'm happy. Thank you guys for being here. We have the whole team together, which is amazing.
Okay, let's start. So the purpose of this exercise, this meeting, is to have a look at the quantification once it's done, almost done, and to share. So the sharing here is important, that we do a round of sharing. So everyone can share their experience quantifying, and by hearing others' experience quantifying, we can identify any quantification problems or weirdnesses, and also listening to others, discussing, looking at the praise again is a way to gain community insight and look at the statistics. And my hopes are that by doing this regularly, that we over time will develop sort of a community specific quantification culture. We discussed last time a little bit like how high should we score certain kinds of contributions, and it's my firm belief that doing calls like these and over time a culture will emerge that will make the quantifications from different quantifiers more and more similar, sort of, even though you might still have different opinions on what kinds of contributions are important and not. So basically, the main part of this call is that we do a round of sharing. How did your quantification go? Were you able to find enough context to quantify praise adequately? Did any problems occur along the way? And what did you learn about your community from quantifying? And how many people are we here? We are 11. So let's not try to spend a maximum a half an hour on that. So basically that means around 3 minutes per person max. Otherwise we'll run over time or not get to the finish, because after that we can look at some statistics and have a discussion of the quantification in general.
Okay.
So I can keep track of the time and also try to make some notes along the way. Who would like to go first?
I can start if you want.
Sure.
Yeah? Okay, so I just go through the purpose of like to share, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, the experience quantifying. Yeah, the main problem that I think that I found, it was the context, especially because it's like we're quantifying things from last year, so it's kind of like difficult to put it in context of like what was happening. Like I wasn't here in the working at Giveth in November last year, so yeah, every time that you see something that with little context, like you don't know how to score that because you don't know like what was happening at the moment. I think that's like the problem that also like what kind of score, like is it like 144, like how, what do you put 144? What do you consider a contribution that is so valuable to put the max score? like it was difficult to me to put something like most of the things I put like in between. I don't think I put any 144. I guess that's like what I like my experience with it. Yeah. I don't know if anybody else wants to share their experience.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry, I was having a little audio difficulty in the beginning. I'll provide a different perspective because I was pretty engaged in Giveth at that time. So I didn't really have trouble quantifying. What I really just noticed is we were using praise at a very low level to recognize people for very small things. There didn't seem to be a lot of things in there that were in that period. I just didn't see a lot, and I also noticed a ton of repetition. It seemed that the things that were noticed were acknowledged by many people. And
So, sorry, can I just ask you to clarify that? Praising on a low level, do you mean that the contributions that were praised were like really small contributions, or?
yes, that is what I mean. Most of the contributions did there weren't really a lot of things that were at that one at a high level. There were some, and they were recognized pretty highly, but for the most part, most of the recognition was just appreciating that people were showing up and doing their job.
Thanks.
Yeah, cool. I can take it. I noticed kind of the same thing. A lot of like praise for like being a dev, and which is kind of like, okay, cool. That is their job. And I found that challenging to quantify. And something that I actually noticed about like, well, my own perspectives of like the scale versus maybe other people's. I was like talking to Mitch about it. He was like, oh, like if somebody gives an important talk or is like writing some important Solidity code, then I give them like 144. And I was like, whoa, I would never give anyone 144 unless it was like something that would have ruined us if we didn't have it. And so like my like range, the most I gave anybody was like 31 or something. I was like really like, and that was, I felt like being very generous. And so anyway, the way that I initially perceived the scale was very different from what I heard other people were doing. And so that kind of made me think that I would change the way that I'm like doing rankings in the future. Yeah. I think that might be all I have to say.
So I'm making a note here. This is an interesting question. Like, how often should a 144 score occur, or in general, how often do we perceive like this, that the biggest possible contribution is this something that happens once a week, every day, or once a month, sort of?
Yeah. Yep. And it was interesting also just to be like, oh my God, man, things have changed and they've also not changed at all. I can't believe that like these praises were also just 1 year ago. Oh my God, I spent too much of my life on this computer. I'll pass it to Corey.
Hey, so I'm joining a little bit late because I wasn't in the meeting last week, and then Franco wrote me a couple days ago that I've been added as a quantifier, so I'm just joining for the first time today. So I think I need to listen in a little bit more than contribute right now because I haven't actually done any quantifying, but I'll be starting.
Thanks. Would you like to pass this on? Is it done?
Yeah, Nicola?
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, well, I can definitely also resonate or what has been shared. There was a lot of duplicacy that I noticed, a lot of duplicates. And because some of the praises were lacking the context, for me, I'm also relatively a new contributor, right? Like this year. So I've noticed that it led me to give a lower score. But in the future, I would envision that I would just reach out and ask more questions. Yeah, that's an interesting conversation about the range, the whole range. I was wondering, like, so per one quantifying round, do we play with the scale from 0 to 144, and there's always some, you know, contribution that is the most valuable out of the round, or it's like the most valuable for Giveth ever, like something like Lauren shared, you know, like it must be something really, really big. So that was a place where I wasn't quite sure how to go about this with the range. But yeah, what else was my experience? Yeah, that feels like pretty much in a nutshell.
Thanks. Let's pass it to someone who hasn't gone.
Yeah, let's
I can take
pass
it.
it to Claire.
Thanks, Nicola. I have to say I agree with most of the comments that have gone before. I found that most of my praise scores were in the middle to lower range because I lacked that context of what would be a really high score. It was easy to score lower because there were lots of things showing up to a meeting, the kinds of things that have been said already. I also found that if somebody had praised a group of people for the same activity because they were working on a team, as I was going through, I was perhaps getting a bit more generous, and I had to go back and check my previous score for the same praise to make sure that I wasn't being unfair. And I think that's probably it from me. I kind of agree with everything that's been said before about the duplicates and about maybe the quality and context of praise. I think perhaps the community uses praise as a way to say thank you for being good teammates, and you know, lots of nice things being said in praise, but not necessarily adding to the you know, the everyday value of the work that's going on. So that's a nice thing, but it kind of muddies the water a little bit on our praise system.
You mean that they don't accurately capture like real contributions being made, but it's more like this kind of sweeping praise of, you know, praise this and that person for just being a great person, or for showing up, or for being nice, or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, which is lovely, and it's nice to have a platform to do that. But it's probably going to mean that we have a little bit of extra work to do as quantifiers to go through this kind of praise. Shall I pass
Thanks.
it? Is there anyone to go
Yes,
still?
please. Who hasn't gone? Mitch hasn't gone.
Mitch hasn't gone. Over to you, Mitch.
Hey there. Well, I think it's pretty easy for me just because I have a lot of experience with the quantification process. And I've been around long enough to have all of the context. So not really any big issues for me. I was more interested just to sit in and hear what the rest of you had to say. And I'll pass it to Almond.
Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, it was kind of not really easy for me because the team that I needed to quantify is more like a team that I really don't work hand by hand with. So sometimes I found that the praise that was given to them referred to really specific tasks that I don't have much context with, different from Mitch, for example. So I really like, I don't know, to be honest, I tried my best to give a good score, but I don't feel like really confident that I did a good job, just because, like, again, yeah, I didn't had the context for the task or the praise that my the praise that I have to quantify. So yeah, I think that's my experience. And then the other thing was that some feedback that I already listened about, like praise that was more general, meaning saying like they were good teammates, they are really cool, so that was more easy. But yeah, the ones that were more specific were hard for me. Yeah, and I pass it to, I think, Danny. No, Danny already went to Gil Royale. Guy. Kai.
I'm filleting a chicken, and now I had to touch my iPad to unmute myself. So, thanks. Yeah, I didn't think it was too hard. I was a bit different than other people here. I gave like I immediately made a system. I think I gave low points, but always the same, like 5 or something for like those general. Is a cool guy or good teammate was worth more because that's in a work context. And I gave like a mid-range number to people who were praised for doing what they were supposed to do, because I think that kind of validates their place in the specific work group or whatever, their role, that validates their role. So I think it should be worth something. Other than that, I had a almost a bit boring collection. So it would have been good if, like, I have been around for a long time, to have like a little bit of the earlier stuff. I think I got only new things. So yeah, I didn't pay attention, so I don't know. Please, somebody step up.
Say that again. I like that phrasing you said, that it validates their.
It validates the role that a person picked for themselves or like got approved for by the DAO.
Thanks. And Matteo, perhaps?
Thank you, Christopher. Hey guys. For me, doing it was quite easy. I love the interface. It's just very nice. I think the context issue that I've been hearing for everyone is going to get easier with time as long as we catch up. So that's not an issue. I think remembering what happened a year ago, it's fun. But the other problem about not knowing how to judge certain things because it's out of your field, I think it's actually good because it can get a more general and diverse perception of something. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because I am an engineer, I can only judge engineering things, because the perception doesn't mean that I'm right. And multiple fields, like we have communicators here, we have developers, whatever. I think it's the point of having diversity, and I like particularly this reward board because we have diversity. So eventually, even if it's randomized or whatever, the perception is going to catch up. And yeah, it's basically answering to Almond that don't fear that you have to be certain things to judge it. Just if you have impact, if you believe it's like that, the general perception is going to catch up. So yeah. I'll pass it to Nicola.
Thanks. I already went.
Yeah, Nicola already
Let's
went,
go.
but I do have a message from Freshelle, who gave me feedback on a DM, and because she couldn't make it today, it's very late in the Philippines. So if you don't mind, I'm just gonna read it. Yeah, cool. She said, my main concern while I was quantifying is when do you give a praise the full 144 score? I just kept in mind what was discussed in the training call, that is a scale of highest impact to the community. It was still hard for me based on that. So I guess one of the guidelines I use when scoring the 89 or 144 is that the contribution being praised is related to the person's role proposal description. I wonder how everyone else assess or base their 89 or 144. I think a person's impact to the community is so subjective and challenging to quantify. So when I refer or recall their role proposals or what their job description is, it was easier for me because I think that is their way of making an impact to the community. If they're not an active, regular paid community member, then I just base it on the context provided in the praise. That's from Freshelle. Thank you, Freshelle.
Good feedback. So we did get to the end of the list, and these questions about how often does the biggest possible contribution happen, and how to use the scale is a interesting topic to discuss, perhaps. But I would also like to look at some statistics. And to do that, unfortunately, I have to close the round. I don't know why we chose to. When I look at analytics here, analytics are only available after quantification is after period is closed.
Yeah, it's just that we still have like 4 people who haven't finished Quantify. I don't know if it's. I mean, we can still go ahead and close it, and that praise is just not gonna get like scores, right? That's it, or do we want to?
Normally, you would do this session after you have closed
Yeah.
the period, so I will close it now, and I can hack the database to reopen it again if needed. But I have to close it to reveal the analytics. So I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Okay. So let's look at some statistics, and in addition to this, we also have the standalone tool that we call the RAD, which is the rewards analysis and distribution tool, and we most likely will use that to produce the actual token distribution. But I have not set up that yet for this call, and it basically produces similar analytics to this. What it does in addition to what we can see now is that it also gives you insight based on more than one quantification period. So once you have quantified period number 4 or something like that, then you will get a nice over time development, like how does the volume of praise per week or over time and that kind of stuff. And now we have only one period to look at, so we don't have that much history yet. But let's look at the top 10 praise. What was the top contribution in this period? Was the Danibel praised Marco for the continued epic designs and systems. Yeah, and praise for getting us paid, also a big contribution. So designing stuff, making sure that the money flows, and for hacking away on the PAN payment process to get rewards out and update the process with what we have learned so far. The top 4 here, the number 4 is about working on the admin dashboard, onboard JS fixes and projects and listed logic. So developing stuff, making sure the money flows, and designing things. And the last of the top 5 is for being present and engaged and having great ideas and make great stuff happen. So basically a collection of good traits. And let's scroll down here. So receivers bias score. This is not much to discuss here. This is something you can go and have a look at the praise dashboard yourself. And I would recommend that you try to make this into a forum post, or you can, once we set up the RAD, you can get a similar report like this, but in HTML format, so we can link it in a forum post or a Discord message and share it with the community. Because basically what we ideally would like to do is to write some kind of small commentary to this quantification period that the praise analyst does after each period, based on the discussion we had here about lack of context in praise, on how we can improve praise, and also some commentary about what was the main contributions during this period. Is also super interesting, at least once we get closer to present day. Receivers by number, givers by score. You have various statistics here. And if you would like to drill down for personal interest to know something about all this, you can just click on someone to get the details of what that was about. But here it starts to become more interesting for us as quantifiers. Here we can see the quantification score distribution. And what can be said here? It's a lot of zeros, actually. What does that mean? That must be based on...
Is that maybe the people who didn't rank the certain phrases? Where they scored a 0? Because we never finished.
Yeah, those, but it seems a bit high, but maybe it's... Yeah, maybe it's... That's correct.
Maybe like 50, 60 per person. It was 4 people. So does it make sense? I don't know, math. 60.
It makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
No, oh no.
Okay, good.
200.
240 maybe. I don't know.
So what can we say about the distribution in the rest of the distribution? The top score has been used 21 times. That is actually quite interesting. So fair amount of big contributions still has been quantified. So the next analytic here is quantifiers by score, and this one is interesting because it tells you which quantifier gave the highest quantification scores. In a situation where all the quantifiers give similar scores, the squares would be of similar size. So this tells us that Frechel gave. You see, the Frechel's square is almost double the size of YI the Wanderer. Sorry, I don't remember the real name. Ashley. So almost double the size, which means that Frechel has given almost double the amount of praise score than Ashley. And then the top 5, you know, it's Ashley has given almost a similar amount to Tropical Mango, who has given slightly more than Gelée Royale, and then it sort of falls off quite steeply here. So I wouldn't say that the ideal setup is that everyone gives a similar amount of similar scores. But to me, this seems that Frechel at least has a quite different opinion than most of us. Most of the other quantifiers on what phrase to give the highest scores, and the final, not the final analytic here. We have Frechel. Here you can see the scores, the scores given by quantifier, the mean and the median and the max and that kind of stuff. You can click on a person to drill down and see more details. But the analytic that I find most interesting is the last one, actually. It's the quantification spread. So when does quantifiers agree or disagree? A high quantification spread means that disagreement between quantifiers as to the importance of a contribution. And a high spread means that there's a big distance between the lowest score given and the highest score given. So if someone rates a score, so the highest spread would be that someone scores a praise with a 1 and the other quantifier scores it with 144. So that's a really high spread. So then we can usually we click on like the top three or 4 or 5 and have a small discussion around this. So it would have been good if Frechel was here, because you can see here's a really big spread. So basically, the other 2 quantifiers has regarded this contribution as a fairly small contribution, almost as small as possible contribution you can make, and Frechel has given it the highest score available. So if she was here, we could have discussed that, and here is a similar situation. So maybe this is interesting to discuss. So and I want to be clear that this is not about pointing fingers at anyone, saying that someone has done something wrong. It's more to build this culture of around quantification. It's really interesting to hear how someone reasoned when they gave when the quantifiers agree, it's interesting to hear why did you disagree? Why did you think this was a big contribution and you thought it was a really small one? And Nicola, would you like to share why you believe this was a big contribution?
Yes, yes. Well, when I looked at this, I remember the time when I wasn't involved with Giveth yet, but I remember it was a big thing, those rainbow roles. And well, in my perspective, it's we could continue collaboration with, because it's a collaboration for the value is in creating, collaborative relationships with outside communities. And I think that's super important and valuable. So that's why I gave it such a high score.
Yeah, a super valid point. You believe that collaboration with outside communities is super important. Yeah. Maybe we should make notes of that somehow, or not. Let's look at the next one and see if that can prompt some conversation. Yeah, so in this case, it's Mitch who has given it a really high score, and Fuchsia has given it not so high score. Mitch, would you like to say something about this one?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a really great initiative, and like the whole thing done by Chair actually raised a lot of money for medical debt and for Giveth. It was like, 50 ETH or something like that came out of there, 26. And so I gave it a super high score because it was a pretty awesome initiative. And, if we look at the other people, like Fuchsia was like not even here or around. So like she probably didn't have very much context at all compared to the context that I had.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say or believe that this is because of lack of context on behalf of the other quantifiers. If they had known what this was, they had given it a higher score, most likely.
I just want like really for this old stuff, it's like the people who have been around for a while are kind of like the heroes here because like they actually know what was happening. So I mean, like Matteo and Lauren and myself and Kai and Danny, it's like we really know what this stuff is worth, and I think we have a really good idea. Because I mean, imagine if that whole thing only got a score of 3, like if I just didn't participate, then that would have had a 3, and then that would be it.
Yeah. So what does this tell us? That it's really important to have a sort of a qualitative mix of people in the quantifier group, because when each phrase is being quantified by more than one quantifier, the likelihood is quite high that it actually is quantified by a person that has adequate context for a praise. So in this case, you giving it the highest score will push up the average to being even, so it will become a decent score in the end. It becomes a 73 average score in the end, which is still probably ranks among the top 10 most highly scored praise during the period.
Mm-hmm. It's exceptional, right? Because we're playing this catch-up game, right? But when we do this, whenever Franco chooses bi-weekly, we won't really have this problem of needing a year's worth of context.
Yeah, I was just thinking kind of the same thing. Like it's like for stuff like this, there's like certain people who get at quantifying it, but for the recent stuff, it's like much easier for anybody who's been around.
The other point though is like if you're quantifying praise for things that you're not really working directly with, right? That was the other thing. So that can be like recent praise, but given for a part of the project that you're not, you're just really not exposed to. So that's still kind of an ongoing challenge, right? Yeah. Sorry, I just because it's like super interesting, and I was just thinking like I guess the way it's set up right now, it's not necessarily possible, for instance, to limit like as a quantifier if we know like your start date with Giveth was July 1st, like to limit the praise that you're reviewing to be like after July. Or even like if we were adding new quantifiers on in the future to kind of, I don't know. I just don't know if that would even make sense or not, because you probably also want other people involved, like to get more of an average. But even like department, like if we think about like the different parts of the org and what people are associated with, or the working groups that they're associated with, would it ever make sense to split up praise by, I don't know, quantifiers who are associated with certain working groups, just quantify praise for those working groups?
I was thinking of that in a
Sorry.
I was thinking of it in a slightly different way, where if you've got a set of praise that you're quantifying and there's an item in there that you just really don't know, it would be nice to be able to pass that one and have it go out of your list, and so you can quantify the ones you actually know, and the ones you don't know would move to someone else. And that's just a forward thinking thought from what we see.
Or what I was thinking is that since we're doing things from November last year, and then we're gonna move on, like what Mitch mentioned, that probably the people that know the most is you, Danny, Lauren, Mitch, and I can't remember who else you mentioned. But like maybe for the praise that maybe they're specific to an event that happened like in the time that people were not there, and if you get that one, you can always maybe just put it in a channel, in the rewards channel, and like tag someone that that was there at that time. I don't know, that's just an idea.
Yeah, Matteo, I think you had some valid feedback on this as well, about daring to quantify stuff that is outside your working group, or outside of your sphere of knowledge.
Yeah, exactly for this. Even though this one is a bit tough because the third doesn't have a score, it should balance, like having a super large score with a small one. Yeah, sometimes perception can be like that, and we cannot judge it. Like, it's the impact in the general sense. So, is what I try to say.
I think maybe a good solution is like if we just do quantification together for like these older ones, at least we do it on a call. And then if you're like, hey, what was this rainbow rolls thing anyway? And then someone could explain it, and then you could quantify based on your judgment. I don't know.
That there is a long-standing feature request or idea that next to praise being quantified, there should be like a small button saying like ask for clarification or something like that. When you push that button, you can type it in a small message, and the praise bot will ask the original praise giver, please add to give me some more context on this. But we are not developing we are not developing that feature, not right now. Over time, my hopes would be that the quality of praise increases over time, when the quantification gets going, when the analysis gets posted, and so on. And you all have to help the community to get better at praising as well, because if the original praise includes the impact and the relevant context, then it becomes so much easier for the quantifiers, even though it may be outside of your sphere of knowledge. So let's look at another one. Carlos, praise Carlos for implementing the admin dashboard, working on a new Giveth front end, bug fixes, and for overall making the DApp better. Okay, Rochelle is not here to defend herself, I was about to say, but it's not about that. To me, this sounds like a fairly large contribution. But I don't know the context. Maybe this was praised many times, similar things as well.
Yeah,
I
the context
understand why.
there is that he was starting as a contributor and he wasn't employed per se. So it was like the first weeks before he was actually hired. But still is part of a kind of contract that we had. So that's why I put some low score to that, because it was basically what he had to do. So.
Ooh, and when I'm looking at my score, I'm like, really, did I give this low one? And obviously it's a duplicate praise, right? So I guess I
Yeah.
thought it was just for a continuous, like, fulfilling your work agreement. But I didn't know what Matteo just said. And I can understand why Freshola gave 144 because of her feedback and that she was actually referring to their role proposals. So anyways, I really wanted to say that I echo what Matteo said about, like inviting people to use their own judgment based on their own values. And I just want to say that it would be nice to have maybe this hack session before we catch up to the date. For those that are interested, I'm definitely down. It doesn't take so long. It just doesn't take so long, really, to do this.
And one super interesting thing to discuss here is how does Giveth as a community value people doing their job? Should doing what is in your role description, should that be given a high score or low score? I believe we have heard like slightly different opinions of that, of Kai describing I believe giving a slightly higher score for people doing what's in their role descriptions, and Matteo, you described now that you didn't give this as so high score because it's in the role description. Any thoughts on that?
I think that personally, what I would like give a high score for me is like when people show initiative and like they go like out of their way like to like do something that is really valuable for the community. So it's basically like initiative and like putting a lot of effort and like for example, like with this praise that was from last year, it's difficult. Like this is again with the context because I was not there. But like now, like since I'm like pretty active in like the calls and I know what like I'm reading the discourse, so I kind of like know what like what's going on. So I know what's kind of like everyone's like job and they're doing when they like make an effort or like they take initiative. So I don't know. Like for me, that's an important thing. Like to contribute to the community, taking initiative.
Yeah, and I want to add that the whole point of this is to reward value and impact that is created by contributors. So if we can see it's being already rewarded, whatever that is your job with your payment, etc. So I agree with Franco in the sense that initiatives and stuff that are more seen the contributions should be taken like that. Because I remember right now mostly people are working and have like an agreement and they have their monthly payment, but back then there was like, I don't know, many people without a contract because we didn't launch the economy, we didn't have like the ways to handle many contracts like that. So it was special because of that. Someone just came into a call and okay, I'll do this, I'll handle this, and they kept working for months without any agreement, and those people should be rewarded for that. So I think like it's initiatives, its contribution, its value creation that goes a little bit outside of your already rewarded work, because you are already being rewarded with your monthly payment. it's what we should be focusing on. That's why I say if that was his job and he's already getting rewarded, it shouldn't have like such a high score because you are already technically being rewarded for that. It's my opinion, and this I remember the praise was pushed more people from outside to contribute more, and it's a way to handle that. So yeah, I don't know. Just wanted to mention that.
One discussion that has been happening in the TEC is the discussion about some kind of praise tax. There the discussion has been, should the quantifier quantify, give lower scores to praise receivers that are paid contributors, and that means that you as a quantifier also have to keep track about who's getting paid and not. So it adds sort of an extra layer of complexity. And I'm not arguing against that at all. But I'm just saying that this discussion is ongoing, and then I don't know if there will be a proposal about some sort of tax scheme. Basically, if you the more you earn as a fixed income, the higher tax you will pay on the praise rewards, something like that.
Yeah, and the subjectivity also works with that sense because, for example, me as a developer and a mate of Carlos, I can judge more. I know he's been contracted, but then can maybe come Freshell and didn't know he was contracted there and put a higher score, and it should balance more. The score should give it a more balance in that sense. And also when we use source cred back in the day, like 1.5 years ago, or even more, 2020, and by 2020, I think we had some rule like that. If you had a contract, you had like a percentage cut off of the Pambala that was given that time. It was a long time ago. We were giving out Pambala because that was the currency that we had a lot, and yeah, it was served as that purpose. I like that idea, like some certain tax deduction of like, hey, you are being already rewarded, you shouldn't get as much. I don't know. We can discuss it more.
Yeah, and the way it was discussed in TEC was that if that was being approached, and it could do a process where actually where a group of or individuals would propose different tax schemes. So there could be like the TEC communists or the TEC. We should have a low tax rate on the praise to encourage contributions and so on. No, we should redistribute. It could be an interesting process to run somewhere down the line. Maybe we should try to look at one more and then finish this up for leading. And let's not take one that Freshell is involved in. Was it that was Freshell? In this case, I would, Franco, almost consider Freshell to have a look at praise again and perhaps reconsider, because I know it's kind of skews the whole data set when she's giving out the top score so easily.
Yeah,
But
she
of
gave
course,
144.
Sorry?
Yeah, she gave a lot of 144. So yeah, maybe I can, like, can you open the period again? Like now that it's closed? Like,
Yes.
Okay, cool. So then the people that didn't quantify as well can get to finish as well. That'd be cool. Yeah, I'll talk to her.
Basically all these that are
144.
big quantification spread.
Yeah.
Not this one. Grip traces invoca man. For the awesome call going over the smart contracts this weekend. And in this case, I sense that Mitch has some old context knowledge that these newer quantifiers don't have. Mitch, would you like to share what your knowledge about this actual thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems pretty like explanatory. Like I wasn't there at the call, but I know that this person did some smart contract reviewing work for us early on, and it's like the key word for me is like going over smart contracts, and like based on my own criteria, it's like that seems like pretty like niche, hard skill, like pretty important work. So it's like, why not give it a 144?
Yeah. This is Jesus. He's a smart contract dev that's like doesn't work for Giveth, but jumps in when we need him. And it's like when we were doing the Give Economy launch, it was like getting Jesus to come in and like review our smart contracts. It wasn't like an official audit, but like he has good experience and he was able to kind of like check for any mistakes. So like this is a like Mitch was like kind of speculating, but was also very spot on. I didn't get this praise, otherwise I would have quantified it really high as well.
I think it seems like a perfect example of a good high score praise of a specialist coming in from the outside, doing super detailed work that if it hadn't been done, maybe something big would have broken and Giveth would not exist if the smart contracts were not secure or something like that. Okay, we are approaching the end of this hour. I don't think we should look at any more praise. This planning we can do outside of this call.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I'd just like to like see if everyone's okay with this, like what we were just mentioning in the chat, like having maybe like a weekly like praise party. It's like 1 hour at this time, and we can all like praise together the next period once it's open. Yeah. Cool. I'll try and organize that and see how it goes. Can be fun. So yeah, hopefully it will go good. And yeah, I'll give it to you, Christopher. Yeah. I think we're done. Yeah, or
also, if we don't do it together for next sessions, maybe can we do more amount of praise to give? Because particularly I took like 15 minutes and I think I can handle 30 minutes and we could like catch up way faster and don't have this problem.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna take the opportunity here since Danny and Mateo and Nicola, Claire is gone, but maybe it would be cool like for us to get together and also like kind of decide on some things, because for example for the next round I don't think we would just use the whole pool of quantifiers, and we would just like use less people, like because this was like the first period, so we tried to use everyone as a quantifier to get a little bit of training in it, but we don't have to. We can also use a smaller amount of quantifiers and they get more amount of praise to quantify. So, but these are things that we can also decide together with the team. Like it'd be cool like to hear your opinions in this as well.
Oh, that sounds good. It seems like we would be well served to use some of these first periods, maybe to buddy up newer people to this with those who have some experience and help raise up everybody's skill level and make some of these decisions.
Thank you everyone for coming. Yeah, it was great. I don't know, I love having you Fridays here. It's amazing. Fridays with the praise.
Yeah, thank you everyone, and some really nice insights were being captured here. I will share the document with Franco, and we'll see. And the next time I won't be hosting this call, the post quant thing, and then I will pass on to Franco to do this. And yeah, okay. Nice seeing you, everyone.
Thank you everyone. Bye.